We're going to get started here by kicking things off with Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller.
Right.
Good afternoon, Navy. That's right, there we go. So a couple of things. Wonderful day for us all to be out here together. So I want to thank everyone who came out. I'm assuming almost everyone is Navy affiliated, Navy veteran, Navy family. So first and foremost, thank you for your service. I was teasing the Admiral, we don't talk about the Navy a lot here in New Mexico. They joke there's something in the Rio Grande, but if you've ever been there, it's only 2 feet deep. There is nothing hidden in the Rio Grande for the Navy. But we know that, of course, this is an incredible military town and has been for a long time. In fact, the reason why I'm here in many ways is because of the military. So my dad was in the Army and moved out here in part because of connection and to be in the reserves out here. And of course, we understand we have an Air Force base and whatnot. So it's a real honor, though, today to focus on the Navy. And this is where, for the first time, I get to share that when I was a kid, I did want to be in the Navy. And I had all the Navy posters up in my room, the whole bit. And so I'm not sure exactly what happened to that dream. But my parents can confirm it. And it had to do with a great ROTC event that I went to, actually. And the Navy was just awesome to me at that event as a young 8-year-old. So a couple of things that we want to talk about, I think, here today. First and foremost, I'm really somewhat speechless that he is here. So because of the important work that he does to defend our country and keep our warfighters safe every day. And so I want to just straight up, I want to thank you, Admiral Munsch, for being here so much. So this is Navy Week, and of course, many of you probably know the connection is especially some of our current Navy service folks, but including the Admiral, that many of them served or even commanded the USS Albuquerque. And so it's extra special to have you here for Navy Week, but also to talk about the next steps of your old sub. Does anyone ring a bell? Not recognizable at this point, So, but I have to say that, for us, it's always been an honor to have the USS Albuquerque. And as my memory was refreshed, we still have the USS Santa Fe out there in our waters, as well as the USS New Mexico. And so we punch above our weight. And I no doubt understand that it's because of many of you here that we have 3 boats in the water named after our state. That is incredible, proportional to our population and our congressional representation. So we really appreciate that. Is some Navy pride in Albuquerque. So I think what I'd like to really just wrap up my remarks with is that, I heard about this idea and I was like, awesome, we got to do it. And I want to mention, at first, there was an effort, there was wonderful generosity, where the Navy community was like, we'll help you fundraise for it, Mayor. We're going to bring the USS Albuquerque home. And I was like, we don't have time for that. We'll just do it now. How much does it cost? And they gave me a number, and I was like, done. And that was awesome. By the way, just like that's why you run for the office sometimes. It's just so you can make a decision, you can get something done. And so I'm so glad that we acted quickly to get this here. I'm going to give you the opposite message now, which is now I do need your help. And so the time has come for our community to support the USS Albuquerque's return home. And I'll explain an obvious reason why. You see, and I don't know who made the mock-up, but I guess it was the same person who gave me a wooden submarine. I think I had that right. So,
right here, Mayor.
Chief, awesome.
Chief Alliance.
Chief, that is also in the mayor's office, by the way, the wooden sub that you gave me. And this is a tremendous, it is a fun vision, first and foremost, but it's a celebratory vision, I think, for the Navy in Albuquerque. There are a lot of things we could do with this. Put it in a park, put it in our convention center, and of course it would always be with honor and respect. But I think there are a few places we could put it that just bring a smile to everyone's face, and that also in a fun, aquatic way honors a little bit about what the Navy does, even though I know it does much more than submarines. So we have here the rendition of the sail, once again in the water at home at Tingley Beach. And so if you haven't seen this, Tingley Beach has several ponds, and one of them is actually just for remote control boats. And is that it, Dave, or something else? That's really all it's for.
Ducks.
And ducks. So imagine remote control boats and ducks, and everyone just watching and celebrating all things Albuquerque, including our commitment to our military tradition. But also, man, for the kids, like I have an 8-year-old, he'll never forget growing up, like seeing that vision in our city down at Tingley Beach and driving a remote control boat around it. So we think it's an awesome vision. It is a little pricey. So that's why we need your help. We have the designs for this. That includes the engineering. Turns out these are quite heavy. You may remember that fact. And so it is actually a big engineering effort to make sure that it doesn't sink also into the mud right underneath. So there's a whole lot to it which does drive up the cost. So I'm gonna save the long and short of the project, but the basic concept is this. We paid for the design, we paid for it to get here, and we can certainly pay for half of the installation. But we need the community's help for the other half, and we're hoping that we can get this in under $1 million in terms of the ask that we have. So we are gonna be, of course, asking the city and the county and the state and whatever Department of Defense funds we get a hold of for this, and that's where we need the Admiral to pull some strings. But also we want to have the Friends of the USS Albuquerque sail, and so all of you can be a part of that down the road. And we are taking donations right now through the One Albuquerque Fund, so we'll make sure and put all that public.
I was just going to ask, how can we donate, sir?
Thank you. So we're going to put it on social media, we're going to put it in the press release, and I have a super long URL that I will just paraphrase by saying it's like One Albuquerque Fund / USS Albuquerque Memorial. And any of our staff here, it'll be abundantly clear once we get it up on the website. It's a little long. And so we would love your help. And seriously, like even if it's $1, we want a symbol to show that people want this to happen. So I'm serious, count me in, I'm gonna do it too. Because we wanna show people that we gotta do this for Albuquerque. It's just a matter of how fast we can get it done. Okay, so enough of that because we have an Admiral here and I wanna turn the podium over to him. Admiral, come on up. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Beautiful weather here. Beautiful weather. So thanks, Mayor Keller. Really appreciate your involvement here and your enthusiasm in helping this project forward. We had a discussion at the decommissioning ceremony about saving the sail. And we knew it would cost money, and we were trying to figure out how to come up with the money. You made that part easy. Thank you very much. And thanks to the Navy League and the Submarine League for your sponsorship of this event and for all of you coming out. We very much appreciate having you here. So I'm Admiral Stuart Munsch. I currently command U.S. Naval Forces Europe and Africa. And in my NATO capacity, I command Allied Joint Force Command Naples, responsible for the defense of the southern half of Europe. But I'm here really as a forming commanding officer of USS Albuquerque. And I couldn't be more proud to be here. This is really an important event to me personally, and I think it is to the Navy and quite clearly to the community of Albuquerque. So I also happen to be here as the senior representative for the Navy for Albuquerque Navy Week. Now it's a series of events, but what it really is meant to do is to renew the bond between the Navy and the community here, which we do every couple of years in Albuquerque. The mayor mentioned landlocked. Maybe don't talk about the Navy a lot here. Well, I'm from North Dakota. And North Dakota is the geographic center of the continent of North America. So if you're a North American, you cannot have grown up further from an ocean than I did. And I've got them talking about the Navy.
Nice.
Okay. So New Mexico has a long military tradition. Supported efforts in the Civil War, then the Spanish-American War, and I'll come back to that. Obviously World War I, the world-renowned Navajo Nation Code Talkers, World War II, along with many other service members. More recently here in our war on terrorism with Lieutenant Mark Donald, the native of Albuquerque, who was among the most decorated veterans from that conflict. And today we have over 2,000 New Mexicans serving in the Navy, which is actually quite a few more than North Dakota. Yeah. So you are talking about the Navy here, clearly. My piece of this was commanding Albuquerque from 2002 to 2005. I took command while it was in a refueling overhaul. And with me was Lawrence Edwards, who's over here in the blue shirt, who was in charge of that overhaul. And I would have you know that Lawrence was quite exceptional. And he may not know this. Well, he knows we finished under budget, which for a 2-year, many $million-dollar project is something else. And he may not know this other part, that Albuquerque still holds the record for the fastest refueling overhaul in the history of the Navy. And a lot of it goes to his work. So we were known back then, I think, for our competency, our innovation, and our toughness. And I'd like to think we took that from the character of the city here in Albuquerque. For me personally, taking command of Albuquerque brought 3 strands of my life together. And the common link among them all was a fellow named Theodore Roosevelt. So when I took command of Albuquerque, it was in a ceremonial area in the shipyard next to a brick building that has a plaque on it that notes that that was the site where then President Theodore Roosevelt negotiated the end of the Russo-Japanese War, for which he became the very first American awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, I'm from North Dakota, and that's where Theodore Roosevelt spent some years when he was a younger man, toughing himself up, learning how to ranch, and survive the North Dakota winters. And he grew a liking for the type of man in that environment. After a few years of that, he went back east, got involved in politics, eventually became the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, which is the #2 person in the Navy. And when the Spanish-American War broke out, which I mentioned I would come back to, he resigned from the Department of the Navy, and then he commenced to stand up the famous Rough Riders Regiment. And who did he recruit? He recruited those cowboys he had met out in North Dakota, many of whom had migrated down to this part of the world. And there were 4 of them that were actually from Albuquerque at the time. And so my life in the Navy, my command of Albuquerque, my background in North Dakota all came together in that moment. So I'm very proud of having been part of Albuquerque. And I really thank the community for your warm welcome of us when we had our time in command. There's a Sailor of the Year competition for every operational command in the Navy. For most commands, that means you're going to get promoted early. And that's what sailors really prize. For those that were part of the crew of USS Albuquerque, yes, that would happen. But what they really prized is that the Sailor of the Year and their spouse, if they were married, got a trip to Albuquerque, where they were treated like royalty. So thank you very much. So not only is Albuquerque important to the state, as the mayor mentioned, there's also USS Santa Fe. We have Eric Knepper here, who's the current commanding officer of USS Santa Fe. The reason Eric is so good in the submarine force is that his very first tour as an officer was on board USS Albuquerque. So Albuquerque then, New Mexico now, part of the wider Navy, where we fight from the seabed to space. One of those astronauts up on the International Space Station right now is a naval officer. And we preserve the peace, we respond to crisis, we deter conflict, and when necessary, defeat adversaries. And that's what Santa Fe is doing these days. I'm very proud of this progress that's happened here, that the mayor so rightfully outlined, including the fundraising that's necessary here. And Lawrence, of course, has been leading that project. And there couldn't be a better man doing that. And we're really happy that you've taken that charge. He's a native of the Albuquerque area. And is in the process of moving in. Thanks again, Lawrence. So thank you again, Mayor. Appreciate the proclamation here very much that's about to come. And the citizens of Albuquerque and wider New Mexico that support the Navy and more broadly our armed forces. And thank you all again for coming out today.